Hello everyone, my name is Helena Balabin and here I'm going to present our poster towards multimodal transformers trained on biomedical text and knowledge graphs. So to start, what is the motivation of our project? Well, our goal is to create a complete and contextualized representation of biological processes. And typically how this is done is through the use of large-scale knowledge graphs, which are extracted based on lots of biomedical literature. And typically one can train knowledge graph embedding models for various classification purposes, such as, for example, the classification of a species in which a given protein-protein interaction might be coming from. However, there is a major problem with that, and that is the loss of context by the reduction to the structured knowledge graph format. And so our goal in this project is to reintegrate that missing textual context into the classifier by using a multimodal transformer with cross-model attention. And how we do that is by a three-step comparison. We set up two baselines which are trained on either one of the modalities, so either only text, which is the NLP baseline, or only knowledge graph data, which is our knowledge graph baseline. And we compare that against our proposed model, which leverages both modalities in a unified model architecture. And by evaluating all three models on the same tasks, we hope to assess the benefit of using both modalities. Now, moving on to the methods, I want to start with an overview. So basically, we're evaluating the three models on a shared data set, as I mentioned before, and this data set consists of text triple pairs. So basically a sentence or two of text and a knowledge graph triple associated with it. And depending on which model we use, we take different partitions of that data shown in the lower half of the figure here. So either only text or only the knowledge graph data for both baselines, or the combination of the two modalities for our proposed model called stongs. Now, moving on to the data that we're using is coming from the Integrated Network and Dynamical Reasoning Assembler, or INDAR in short. And what we have here is for each text triple pair, we have the text evidence, which is a sentence or two from biomedical literature, and the triple that has been extracted based on it, so shown in purple here. We also have additional annotations such as the species in this context, which will be used to generate the evaluation tasks later on. Moving on to the models, the first model, the NLP baseline, is pretty straightforward. We take the text evidence from the text triple pairs from Indra and use that as a basis for classifying different contexts later on. The second model is the knowledge graph baseline. And so for this model, we are using the two entities of the given triple in a text triple pair. And to keep it comparable with the other models, the NLP baseline as well as our proposed stongs model, we want to convert those two entities into a sequence of embeddings. And basically how we do that is through using node to vec as our knowledge graph embedding model. So for each node in a given graph, we learn a random walk as well as a node embedding. And so for each node, we can associate a random walk with it. And for each node in that random walk, we can get the associated embedding vector. So meaning that for the source and target nodes in a given triple, we can get an overall embedding sequence by concatenating the two random walks with each other. This is important because it not only forms the basis for the classification in the knowledge graph baseline, but it also gives us the knowledge graph part of our proposed multimodal model. So basically by concatenating the random walk-based entity embedding sequences with the word embedding sequence for the text using BioBERT, we get a combined input sequence, which is the basis of our multimodal transformer. So by taking a closer look at it, one can see that, for example, for a given text token, the contextualized representation is not only formed using other text tokens, but also using node embedding vectors from the associated random walks. And vice versa, that also means that for building the contextualized representation for a given node, one can also not only use other node embedding vectors, but textual token vectors. And that means that there is the opportunity to learn complex interdependencies between both modalities. Moving on to the evaluation, we evaluate the approaches in a transfer learning procedure consisting of the annotations that are given in the data set. Based on that, we set up multiple multi-class classification tasks. So moving on to the results, one can see that Stonks outperforms both baselines, specifically on the more challenging tasks, which consists of more classes. This suggests that the addition of both modalities in the same model could particularly be helpful for more challenging tasks with more classes and specifically less samples per class at hand. Now, to wrap up the approach, I want to highlight the three most important aspects. So first of all, we present a cross-model representation based on both knowledge graph and text data. We train our models on a large-scale data set that is the Indra corpus, consisting of over 13 million text triple pairs. And lastly, there is, of course, the biological application that is to improve contextualized representations by having both modalities available.